Hi, I'm Marge Robeson, registered dietitian with Pasonic Partners.
Hi, I'm Melinda Gray, Food Service Manager for LCCAA Head Start.
And I'm Katie Colazzo, the production lead for LCCAA's Head Start.
We're so pleased that you could join us today for part one of our out-of-the-box cooking series, Soup and Salad. Today we're going to be making a minestrone soup. With the change of season that's upon us, soup becomes a staple meal in my home. So we thought we would share with you this minestrone soup recipe. I love soups because generally they're pretty easy to make. I like not to have to stress about what I'm going to be making for dinner, and soups are a great thing that you can make ahead. I often make a big pot of soup, and then I can even freeze some for another meal at another time, or perhaps on a Sunday I make a pot of soup and I know I have a really busy day on Mondays. That soup is ready to be heated up when I come home. Sometimes even on a Sunday, I'll put all the ingredients for a soup into a crock pot, and then the soup is ready to go when I come home. So soups are really simple, and that's why I like them. What about you, Melinda? Why do you like soup?
I love soups on a cold, dreary day because it's a comfort food.
Nice. And
For
Katie?
me, myself, I personally love them because they are simple, they're versatile. You can eat them by themselves, you can add them to baked potatoes or mashed potatoes, you can have them on the side with sandwiches. And it reminds me of my childhood, my grandpa making me homemade soup all the time.
Great. Well, since we all love soup, we want to share this recipe with you. So we're going to wash our hands, wash our produce, and then we'll get started. So we have all of our ingredients assembled. Sometimes that's called mise en place, or mise en place is a French word that means everything in its place. So that helps on saving on cooking time when you have all of your ingredients assembled or your mise en place. So we're ready to get started, and the first step in making the soup is we're going to heat some oil in a stock pot on a medium-high heat. So Katie's adding the oil in to heat up, and then we're going to add in some diced onion, celery, and carrots.
This is also known as mirepoix, which can be a vegetable base that helps to increase the flavor of the vegetable without caramelizing it. Smells delicious.
That mirepoix is getting sauteed there. Katie's going to add the tomato paste to the soup. And that too is going to add great flavor and will heat up with those vegetables. So while she lets that kind of meld together, the vegetables get a little bit softer, she's now going to chop some of our seasonal vegetables that are going to go in there along with the garlic. And the great thing again about soups is their versatility. We're adding potatoes and zucchini. So those, can easily be substituted based on your preference. If you don't like zucchini, but you have some green beans in your freezer or fresh green beans available, you can feel free to use those. I know I like winter squash, so if I have winter squash this time of year, I might dice up some of that for part of the potato. So feel free to modify, add this to this recipe as you like. So she's got the potato diced into small pieces. Now Katie's gonna chop the zucchini and mince the garlic and add that to the soup. And when I think about the difference between canned soups and fresh soups, certainly, a canned soup is easy to have on hand, but I think there's no comparison between a canned soup and fresh homemade soup, right?
I agree.
Yeah. The flavor is so much better in a fresh soup. And while canned soups can be great to have on hand, again, if you make soup ahead and freeze it, then you have that available also. And if you compare from a nutrition standpoint, a canned soup that's obviously a lot more processed than a fresh soup. We can modify our ingredients in a homemade soup so that we're adding a lot more vegetables to it, using a low sodium broth. We know for people who need to be watching their sodium, and let's face it, we all should probably be watching our sodium intake. Canned soups are really high in sodium. This particular soup I have, which is not atypical from other soups, has about 700 milligrams of sodium in a cup.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. We recommend that most Americans shouldn't have more than 2,300 milligrams a day. So just a cup of this soup,
It's almost all of your intake.
it's almost all of your sodium for the day. So when you can make things at home, you're better able to control the ingredients that you're putting into the food. And we're going to be adding beans to the soup. And when you do things like rinse the beans, you can actually reduce the sodium in canned beans by 30 to 40%.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I always say, you may hear when you go grocery shopping, people always hear you should shop the outside of the grocery store. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Where that's the best fresh food. And while I agree with that, I think that's great to think about. I always say I take exception with canned beans because canned beans are economical. They're a great source of protein, fiber, super nutritious. So they tend to be in the inside of the store. So one of the things that is great to go in that aisle and get canned beans, just remember to rinse them or buy low sodium or those that are with no added salt. So how's that coming along, Katie?
It's looking very good.
Okay.
Like, very colorful.
Very colorful. So we've got all the vegetables in there.
Yep. Now I just need to go ahead and chop up the garlic.
Okay. So she's gonna mince that garlic finely, and then we'll add that in. And of course, anytime you add garlic, that adds a whole nother element of flavor, and it's gonna make it smell even that much better.
I love garlic.
Yes.
I add it on everything.
Yep. So I know sometimes people say, oh, this soup has so many vegetables, my kids aren't gonna eat that. And this is, again, one of the things I love about soups is they are a great way, you may have heard me say before, when you're introducing foods, new foods to kids, to pair new foods with some preferred foods. And soups are a great way to do that, that there may be components in the soup that the kids like, and when they eat that, and it's paired or combined with some other things that may not be their preferred foods, you never know when they might start to try some of those other foods. And so having soups, that's a great way to introduce new foods to kids. Maybe they just pick out the noodles or like the crackers, but you still want to present those other foods, and soups are a great way to do that.
We have all the vegetables warming up together right now, simmering and sauteing. And if you could smell this, it smells so good right now.
So to the sauteed vegetables, Katie's going to add the oregano and the thyme. That adds more seasoning and flavor, and mix that together. And then the next step is to add the canned diced tomatoes. You want all that juice in there, so she's going to add the whole can of diced tomatoes. Again, if you're watching sodium, you can always use low sodium canned tomatoes. And then we're going to add the broth. Of course, the highest sodium part of the soups is often the broth. There are low sodium options available that are great to use. We're using regular broth today, but we're not going to add any extra salt to the soup because we are using a regular sodium broth. So we add all that, and then we're gonna add the water and bring this all to a boil so that, again, the whole thing with soup is that the flavors start to meld together. That's why I think they're so great to make ahead,
Yeah.
because often they're better the next day.
When all the flavors can sit together and actually make it more delicious. Okay, so now as you can see, it's starting to slowly boil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to partially cover it, and we're going to let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Okay, so our soup has been boiling for about 15 minutes now, so I'm going to go ahead and add in our noodles, our beans, and the spinach.
So again, a great way to get in whole grains is to use whole grain noodles. And in something like a soup, often that's a great way to introduce whole grain pastas and get our families used to those healthier options. And I think it calls for, what, 2 cups of spinach?
About 2 cups, yep.
Yep. So again, soup, add more or less to your liking.
I'm just going to grab
And
this.
so we're gonna mix
Thank
all
you.
that together. And so, again, this is a vegan soup. She added beans. Beans are a great source of protein. I would love the soup just how it is. I'll be honest, probably my husband and my 3 teenage boys would like to have some protein in the form of maybe some rotisserie chicken added in there. If I had some left, I might add that in there. Or I know I frequently have these little meatballs, and so these would be something, particularly I would say when my kids were little, if I made a soup like this that was pretty much vegetables, I might add in these little meatballs, and I know the little kids really like those, and so when they would eat the soup, again, I would give them a bowl of soup. They might just pick out the noodles and the meatballs and the crackers, but that's okay. I still had a little bit of the vegetables in the bowl to introduce them. And again, modeling as parents that we're eating things with the vegetables at the meal, a variety of foods, is all of those ways to help get your kids to eat new foods. So would you want meatballs in it, Katie, or is that?
I can eat it both ways. I do love just the vegetables, but I also love the protein.
So something like the meatballs would not come in your box, but if you have, when you make the soup, like I said, if you have any kind of leftover, even ground meat could be put in there, I think.
Yeah.
Chicken, if you have, like I said, rotisserie chicken, feel free. If you have other vegetables in your refrigerator that you want to get rid of, add those in. That's the beauty of the soup. You can't really go wrong. So our soup is done, and it's going to be very comforting on a cold, chilly day. You can serve the soup however you like. You might want to pair it with some bread. We're going to be making the salad in our next episode, so that would pair well with the soup. I think for kids, they would like it probably paired with we have oyster crackers, of course some Parmesan cheese on it. Kids can even do this themselves. Sometimes when you let them add some of the toppings to things, that's going to encourage them to try new things. So we're so glad that you joined us, and you will be getting the box to make this recipe tomorrow since you watched this video. And then please send us any pictures of you, your family, making the recipe. Give us feedback. And join us for part 2, where we'll be making a salad that would be great to accompany this soup or just on its own.
We hope to see you again on November 16th when the autumn pear salad is prepared. Thank you all for attending.
Bye.